My name is Emily. I'm 30 years old and I live in a small town in Ohio. From the outside, my life looks almost perfect. I have a husband, a nice little house with a white fence, and neighbors who always smile when they see me. But last night I sat by the window long after midnight holding a photo of us from years ago. I tried to remember what it felt like back then when I thought love was enough to keep us safe. My hands were shaking and I couldn't stop the tears from rolling down my face. People around me always say how lucky I am. They see us walking together, laughing at family dinners or smiling in photos on social media. They believe my story is simple. A happy marriage, a peaceful life. But what they don't know is that I live with a quiet ache inside me every single day. I often tell myself that everything is fine. I make coffee in the morning, I put on my work clothes, I kiss him goodbye before I leave. It looks normal. It looks good. But inside I feel like I am living a lie. Sometimes I wonder if he notices the way I look away when he talks about the future. Or the way I pause before answering when he tells me he loves me. I keep asking myself, why can't I feel safe with him? Why does my heart still tremble when I see his phone light up? Last night, the silence in our home felt heavy, almost unbearable. I thought about getting up, packing a bag and leaving. I thought about how easy it would be to just drive away in the middle of the night and never look back. But I didn't leave. It was just before I could move, something happened. Something that changed everything. He walked into the room, looked at me with tired eyes and asked me a question I wasn't ready for. A question that made my chest tighten, my breath catch and my whole world spin. And in that moment I realized, the lie I had been living with was about to break wide open. Last night I almost left. But then he asked me something that shattered everything. The next morning, everything looked normal again. Sunlight came through the curtains and the sound of birds outside made the world feel peaceful. My husband, Daniel, was already in the kitchen making breakfast. He smiled at me when I walked in as if nothing was wrong, as if the night before had never happened. I sat down at the table watching him move around the kitchen. He looked so sure of himself, so calm, so ordinary. If anyone else had seen us, they would have thought we were the perfect couple. A man cooking for his wife, a wife quietly smiling at him. But inside I felt trapped in a cage that no one else could see. "Coffee?" he asked, holding up my favorite mug. I nodded, forcing a smile. "Thanks." The truth was, these small gestures no longer reached me. His kindness, his little routines, they all felt empty. I wondered if something was wrong with me, if maybe I was the one who had lost the ability to feel. After breakfast we went through our usual day. I went to work at the library, smiled at the people who came in, checked out books, answered small questions. Everyone thought I was kind, gentle, steady. But deep inside, my heart was heavy with secrets I couldn't share. When I came home, Daniel was already there. He had lit a few candles on the table and dinner was waiting. He looked at me with such hope in his eyes, as if he was trying to remind me that we still had something worth fighting for. "You had a long day," he said softly. "Sit down. I made your favorite." I wanted to be touched by it. I wanted to feel the warmth of his effort. But instead I felt a strange coldness settle inside me. I thanked him, smiled politely and sat down to eat. We talked about small things, work, weather, neighbors. Nothing deep, nothing real. It was like we were two actors reading lines from a script. Then halfway through dinner he put his fork down and looked at me. His voice was gentle, almost careful. "Emily," he said, "I've been thinking, maybe it's time we start a family." My chest tightened. My hands froze around the glass I was holding. "A family," I repeated, trying to keep my voice steady. He nodded, eyes hopeful. "Yeah. We've been married for 5 years. I think we're ready. Don't you?" I forced a smile, but inside I felt like the walls were closing in. The thought of bringing a child into this house, into this silence, terrified me. How could I raise a child in a marriage where trust had already started to fade? I mumbled something about needing time and he let it go, but the air between us grew heavier. After dinner I went into the living room to tidy up. That's when I noticed his jacket draped over the chair. Something inside me told me to look, and before I could stop myself I reached into the pocket. My fingers touched a folded piece of paper. I pulled it out slowly, my heart racing. It was a receipt. A receipt from a jewelry store, Dated just a few days ago. My eyes scanned the details. A necklace, delicate and expensive. But I had never received a necklace. The room suddenly felt smaller, darker. My hands shook as I held the paper and my mind filled with questions I wasn't ready to face. Why hadn't he given it to me? Who was it for? And why did I feel like the answer was going to break me? I stuffed the receipt back into the pocket quickly as I heard his footsteps coming closer. My face burned with panic, but I forced myself to stay calm. When he walked into the room, he smiled again, completely unaware of the storm inside me. "Want to watch a movie?" he asked casually. I nodded, my voice barely working. "Sure." But as I sat beside him on the couch, pretending to watch the screen, all I could think about was that receipt in his jacket. And the terrible feeling that maybe my beautiful prison was about to collapse. He made me dinner. I said thank you. Then I found something in his jacket, and my hands started shaking. That night I barely slept. Every time I closed my eyes I saw that receipt. A necklace. Bought only a few days ago. But not for me. I lay in the dark, listening to Daniel's soft breathing beside me, my heart racing with questions. Was it for someone else? Was he hiding something from me? Or was there some explanation that I couldn't see yet? The next morning I made coffee and tried to act normal. But when I saw his jacket hanging by the door, my chest tightened again. That little slip of paper had unlocked something inside me. Something I had buried a long time ago. It wasn't just about the necklace. It was about trust. It was about the fact that trust had never come easy to me, not after what happened before. As I poured the coffee, I remembered another man. Another life. His name was Ryan. I met him when I was 23, fresh out of college, full of dreams and light. He was charming, funny, and made me feel like I was the only woman in the world. For a while, I believed I had found my forever. We planned everything together. Trips, a future, even names for our children. I trusted him with every piece of my heart. But one night, all of that trust was shattered. I was supposed to meet him for dinner. He didn't show up. Hours later, I drove to his apartment, only to see him standing outside with another woman. Their laughter carried through the night like a knife cutting into me. I still remember the way he looked at me when he finally noticed I was there. Not guilty, not even ashamed. Just surprised. Like he hadn't expected me to see the truth so soon. That was the night I learned how fragile love could be. How quickly trust could break. After that, I promised myself I would never be so vulnerable again. But promises like that are hard to keep. Because loneliness has a way of pushing you toward people you hope will save you. That's when I met Daniel. He was steady, kind, patient. He didn't sweep me off my feet like Ryan did, and maybe that was why I trusted him. He felt safe. He felt like a man who would never hurt me. So when he asked me to marry him, I said yes. Not because I was ready, but because I wanted to forget. I wanted to bury the ghost of Ryan and the pain he left behind. For a while it worked. Our wedding was small but sweet, and in the early days I thought I had finally found peace. Daniel made me feel cared for. I told myself that was enough. But over the years the silence in me grew louder. I never told Daniel about Ryan, not really. He knew I had been hurt before, but not the full story. Not the part where I lost faith in love itself. And now, with this receipt in my hands, the old wound felt open again. Was history repeating itself? Was Daniel hiding something from me just like Ryan did? Or was I projecting my past onto him, unable to let go of the pain I had carried for so long? That evening, Daniel came home later than usual. He smiled, kissed my cheek, and told me he had to stay late at work. I wanted to believe him. I wanted to trust the words he spoke so calmly. But deep inside, the ghost of Ryan whispered, "Don't believe him. Don't you see the signs? It's happening again." I tried to push the thought away, but it clung to me all night. Later, when Daniel was in the shower, his phone lit up on the nightstand. A new message. My breath caught. I knew I shouldn't look. I knew that crossing that line would only make things worse. But my hands moved before my mind could stop them. I picked it up, heart pounding, and opened the screen. The message was short, but it felt like a bullet straight through me. It read, "Thank you for last night. The necklace was beautiful." My vision blurred. My whole body went cold. The ghost I thought I had buried came back in an instant. Ryan's betrayal, the laughter outside that apartment, The way trust had crumbled in my hands. It was all happening again. I set the phone down carefully, quietly, as if it might burn me. When Daniel came out of the shower, he smiled, completely unaware of what I had just seen. "Movie night?" he asked casually, rubbing his hair with a towel. I forced a smile, nodded, and said, "Sure." But inside, I wasn't watching the movie. I wasn't even breathing. All I could think about was that message. That necklace. And the terrifying question I had been running from my whole life. Why does the person I love always find a way to break my trust? I buried the past. Until it texted me again after 4 years of silence. The morning after I saw that message, I looked in the mirror and barely recognized myself. My eyes were tired, red, and heavy. I had spent the whole night replaying the words over and over. "Thank you for last night. The necklace was beautiful." I told myself maybe it was nothing. Maybe there was an explanation. Maybe I was wrong. I had convinced myself of similar things before. I thought if I acted normal, maybe the fear inside me would go away. So I put on my best smile, went into the kitchen, and poured Daniel a cup of coffee. "Good morning," I said, my voice too light, too fake. He looked at me and smiled. "Morning. Did you sleep okay?" I nodded quickly. "Yeah. Fine." But it was a lie. And as the words left my mouth, I felt the weight of how much pretending I had been doing, not just now but for years. At work I tried to distract myself, but even the library felt too quiet. Every sound, the turning of a page, the clicking of a keyboard, seemed to echo in my chest. By lunchtime my best friend Sarah walked in. Sarah has known me since high school. She can read my face like an open book. One look at me and her smile faded. "What's wrong?" she whispered, pulling me aside. I tried to shake my head to say, "Nothing," but my throat tightened. My eyes filled with tears I couldn't hold back anymore. We sat in the small break room and I finally let the words spill out. About the receipt, the message, the ghost of Ryan that haunted me. I told her everything, even the things I hadn't said out loud to myself. When I finished, Sarah took my hand. Her voice was soft but steady. "Emily, you can't keep living like this. You can't keep pretending everything's fine when it's not. Pretending doesn't heal you. It only makes the wound deeper." Her words sank into me, heavier than I expected. "But what if I'm wrong?" I whispered. "What if I'm just broken from the past?" She shook her head. "No. Broken trust doesn't come from nowhere. Something's happening. You have to face it." That night when I came home, Daniel noticed something was off. He watched me quietly at dinner, his fork pausing midair. "You've been distant lately," he said finally. "Is something wrong?" I froze, my heart pounding. The answer was on the tip of my tongue, but fear kept me silent. I smiled weakly and said, "Just tired." But his eyes lingered on me, searching as if he already knew more than I wanted him to. Later, when I thought he was asleep, I sat by the window again, hugging my knees to my chest. The house was silent, but my mind was loud. I didn't hear him get up. I didn't notice until his voice cut through the darkness. "Emily, why are you crying?" I jumped, quickly wiping my face. "I'm fine. Go back to bed." But he didn't move. He stood in the doorway, watching me with a sadness I couldn't read. After a long silence, he whispered, "Do you trust me at all?" The question hit me harder than I expected. My chest ached, my throat closed, and I didn't know what to say. Because the truth was, I didn't know the answer anymore. She said I looked like someone carrying a love that wasn't mine. That's when I stopped pretending. The next evening, I couldn't pretend anymore. The weight in my chest was too heavy. The questions in my head too loud. Daniel sat at the table, reading through some papers from work. I stood in the kitchen doorway, staring at him. For a moment I thought about staying quiet, swallowing it all again, pushing it down. But then I remembered Sarah's words. "Pretending doesn't heal you." I walked over slowly and sat down across from him. My hands were trembling, so I folded them tightly in my lap. "Daniel," I began, my voice soft but shaking. "There's something I need to tell you." He looked up at me immediately, his eyes serious. He didn't speak, just waited. I took a deep breath. "I found a receipt in your jacket. From a jewelry store. A necklace. And I saw a message on your phone." My voice cracked. It said, "Thank you for last night." The necklace was beautiful. For a long moment, silence filled the room. Daniel put his papers down carefully, his face unreadable. My heart pounded so hard I thought it might break through my chest. Finally he spoke. His voice was calm, almost too calm. I knew you saw it, he said quietly. My eyes widened. What? He looked at me, and for the first time in years I saw a kind of sadness in him that made my chest ache. I knew you saw the receipt. I knew you saw the message. And I knew you wouldn't trust me enough to ask. I felt tears spill down my cheeks. How could I? After everything, how could I trust you when it all felt the same as before? When it felt like Ryan all over again. His eyes softened, but he didn't look away. Emily, the necklace wasn't for another woman. It was for my sister. She had a birthday. That message, it was from her. I didn't tell you because I wanted it to be a surprise. I thought maybe if I showed you I could do something thoughtful, it would bring us closer again. The room spun around me. My chest tightened as guilt washed over me. But Daniel didn't sound angry. He sounded tired. He leaned back in his chair, rubbing his face with his hands. The truth is, Emily, I already knew. I knew you didn't really trust me. I felt it for years. And I kept hoping one day you'd let me in. But maybe I was wrong. I sobbed quietly, my whole body shaking. I'm sorry, I whispered. I didn't mean to. He cut me off gently. I'm not blaming you. I don't know if love can survive without trust. And I don't know if you'll ever see me as someone different from him. We sat there in silence, the kind that doesn't feel peaceful but heavy. I wanted to scream, to beg, to hold on to him. But all I could do was sit there, breaking inside, realizing how far apart we had grown. Finally, I stood up, wiping my tears. Maybe you're right, I whispered. Maybe I'll never heal enough to love you the way you deserve. I walked toward the door, my legs weak, my heart shattering. As I reached for the handle, Daniel's voice stopped me. Emily, he said softly. I turned back, my face wet with tears. Thank you, he whispered, his voice breaking. Thank you for not lying one last time. And then I left. And as I closed the door, he said, thank you for not lying one last time. It's been 6 months since that night. I live alone now in a small apartment not far from the library. The days are quieter, the nights longer. At first the silence felt like punishment, a reminder of everything I had lost. But over time I began to see it differently. Silence isn't always empty. Sometimes it's space. Space to breathe. Space to think. Space to heal. The first few weeks were the hardest. I woke up reaching for him only to find the other side of the bed cold. I made coffee in 1 cup instead of 2. I caught myself looking at the door, waiting for him to walk in. But he never did. I started writing in a journal every night. Just small notes at first. How I felt, what memories came back, the things I couldn't say out loud. Slowly the words began to flow. Writing became my therapy, my way of untangling the knots inside me. On weekends I went for long walks in the park. I watched children play, couples hold hands, leaves fall and scatter with the wind. It reminded me that life keeps moving even when your heart feels stuck. One afternoon while cleaning my closet, I found a small box I didn't recognize. My hands trembled as I opened it. Inside was a letter written in Daniel's handwriting, folded carefully beside a small keychain, the shape of a heart. I sat on the floor, clutching it, unable to breathe for a moment. Then I opened the letter. Emily, if you ever find this, I want you to know, I never stopped loving you. I knew your past haunted you and I wished I could take that pain away. But I also knew you had to face it on your own. If one day we are no longer together, I hope you learn to trust again. Not in someone else but in yourself. That's where healing begins. Daniel. The tears came fast, falling onto the paper, blurring the ink. I pressed the letter to my chest, crying harder than I had in months. It wasn't the kind of crying that left me broken, though. It was the kind that slowly washes something clean. I don't know where Daniel is now. Maybe he's still in the same house, maybe he's moved on. I don't ask and he doesn't call. We gave each other the gift of silence and maybe that's the only way we could both heal. Some nights I still wonder, why did he break my trust? Or maybe the real question is, why couldn't I give him mine? But then I remember his words, Trust begins with yourself. And I hold on to that. If you've ever felt like me, broken, uncertain, scared of love, I want you to know something: you're not alone. Healing doesn't come all at once. It comes in small steps. A journal entry, a walk in the park, a tearful night that feels lighter the next morning. I don't know what the future holds. Maybe love will find me again. Maybe it won't. But for now, I am learning to sit with the silence, not as my punishment but as my peace. If you've ever felt like me, you're not alone. Tell me your story in the comments.